Les Snead and Sean McVay answer questions about tomorrow's NFL draft and who will the Rams draft in the first round. That's coming up next here on Locked On Rams.
You are Locked On Rams, your daily Los Angeles Rams podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is up, Ramley, and welcome to another episode of Locked On Rams, your daily podcast covering your Los Angeles Rams. Free and available wherever you get your podcasts. Locked On Rams, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We're also available over on YouTube, so if you haven't yet, do us a huge favor and subscribe to the Locked On Rams YouTube channel. Trying to get to 13,000 subscribers before the draft, so do us a huge favor. Hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell, hit that like button, and let us know, what do you think the Rams are going to do in the first round with that first round pick? My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. I've been covering LA sports for over a decade, 24/7 sports, SI, Dodgers Nation, Locked On Rams. And as always, I'm joined by the Rams pre, half, and post-game show host for the Rams flagship radio station, ESPN 710 LA. He's entering his 9th season covering your Los Angeles Rams, the people's champ, Mr. Travis Rogers. You can follow him on X at Travis Rogers. And on today's show, we got our big takeaways from Sean McVay and Les Snead's pre-draft press conference. And we got some first-round draft scenarios. What will the Rams do with that first-round pick? But first, this episode of Locked On Rams is brought to you by Monopoly Go. I admit it, I have a competitive side, and it is a big fan of Monopoly Go, the mobile hit twist on classic Monopoly. So join our friends and download Monopoly Go now, free on the App Store and Google Play. Love me some Monopoly Go. But Travis,
yes,
get excited, man. I know you're just juiced for this. I mean, a first-round pick. We're in the mix. We're definitely going to the party at this point, and just comes down to, what are the Rams going to do? I mean, the anticipation, the speculation, we've been doing it for months and months and months. Finally, we're going to find out what they're going to do with that first-round pick. And yesterday, Les Snead and Sean McVay, they spoke to reporters and had some very interesting takeaways. The first big one is pretty vague, of course, but trading up or trading down or staying put are all on the table. And Les Snead told reporters, but I can honestly say that all three of those options are probably as real as it can get in reality for sure. And we're going to explore all three. Staying pat is one that you control, but you definitely do not control who falls. If you're going to move up, that's a proactive attempt to strike from a distance per se, maybe get an explosive play in the football world, and we'll see what happens and see if we move back or stay pat. So there you go. Everything's an option, of course.
Yeah, explosive play in the football world might be the most Les Snead's phrase that I've heard in quite some time. That's terrific. The everydayers will know this. For the first time in what feels like forever, they do have all of their options available to them. That for the last several years, the last 8 years really, it has been, well, let's wait around and see what happens on day 2, day 3, and you're just waiting for, value picks. You're waiting for guys that are going to be, maybe you could move back and collect more picks. I guess there's always the possibility of moving up, but when you don't have any first round picks, it's really hard to move up. And here we are a day before the draft, and literally everything's on the table, like Les Snead talked. You could just pick where you are. I think of the 3 options, that's the least likely one that they probably land on. You could move up, which is super fun as football fans, as people that are Rams fans. It's always fun to move up because it means you're excited to get that particular player. And moving down, at least, is like kind of something strategic, right? Let's get a few more picks. Maybe there's nobody at 19 that you love, and you can get the same guy at, 29 or 42 or whatever it may be. For the first time in a really long time, the Rams are going into tomorrow's draft with the entire menu available to them. It's awesome. It is a totally different experience for me as the Rams pre-half and post-game show host, as the host of Locked On Rams, to have all of these things available to them, because before, the Rams have sat out the draft in the most meaningful way, the first round way, since they've gotten here.
It truly is, and it can go so many different directions. And what really stands out with what he said was, but you definitely do not control who falls. And this is a Ram organization who, when they identify who they want, whether it be a star in the league, whether it be in the draft, they find a way to get their guy. Do they really want to wait for a player to fall to that spot? I mean, the way to look at it is, look, a lot of quarterbacks are going to get drafted high, a lot of offensive tackles are going to be drafted high, a lot of wide receivers. If some of these defensive players that they might have first-round grades on, blue-chip grades on, if they fall to them at that 19 spot, that's the only way I can see them staying there. If it is a Byron Murphy, if it is a Jared Verse, if it is a Latu who's actually climbing up on the pre-draft boards, is probably going to pick a lot higher than 19. So that's the only way I could see them staying there. But yeah, I mean, he said what I thought he was going to say. And look, all the options are open, right? You don't want to show all your cards right there. Now, another thing I found really interesting.
Can I stop you right there? I just want to get your opinion on something, because I think this is funny. Let's say there's a guy that is, falling, right? That you that everybody thought would go, say, somewhere between 8 and 14. And he's not there. He's still there at 15. Still there at 16, 17, 18. Does that not set off every alarm bell in your head if you're the guy sitting at 19 or so? Like, what does everybody know that I don't know? What is there something that I'm unaware of? Because it could be a couple of different things. It's, hey, I missed something that they got, so I don't want that guy either. Or it could be the Dan Marino thing where everybody's like, oh, he's got this, that, or the other, and you're letting the best quarterback of a generation just drop because you're afraid that he might have this, that, or the other thing. You're just wrong. When you see a player that's kind of slotted into one particular spot who just has got lead shoes on, what goes through your head?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's different teams grade different players in different ways. Different teams value different players in different ways. And I think it's just about need. It's about fit. I mean, what are the teams at the top trying to accomplish? A lot of them trying to get offensive players, wide receivers. A lot of them trying to get quarterbacks and offensive tackles. And that's where you can be opportunistic on the defensive side. It just so happens that the Rams have a lot of spots to fill on that side of the ball with the shocking retirement of Aaron Donald. But yeah, I mean, look, you're always going to see those players. I mean, we talked about yesterday, Aaron Rodgers versus Cadillac Williams. I mean, This is all a crapshoot. These are lottery tickets at the end of the day. These are prospects, okay? The guy who looks the best at the Underwear Olympics is not going to look the best in preseason. And when the actual season starts, when pads start going off and helmets start going off, right? So it's really just a matter of you get to trust your instincts, trust your evaluation process, and then hope that it works out. Hope that player stays healthy. Hopefully he transitions well to the NFL. But that's a good transition to another big takeaway that I took away from this draft is the Rams don't grade by round. So a lot of teams, they'll have 20 first-round grades on players, and they'll put that on a big board, right? And they'll just go down the list. I mean, he's available. They'll go to him, right? But what Les Snead said was, we don't grade by round. We really, if we keep it simple, I'll say this. We have a depth chart, and what's the vision for the player, right? Early, but really you're like, hey, what do you think this player is going to be when he gets to the NFL, when he gets settled, when we develop it? Where does he fit in on that depth chart? So I find that very interesting because a lot of players are saying, okay, let's get the very best player. Where does he grade? The Rams are saying, we got to fit them into a depth chart, and that is after the development process.
Yeah, it is interesting. I agree with you. And the Rams have had some success drafting, both in the first round, outside of the first round. So clearly their philosophy has developed some very good players, developed a Hall of Fame player in Aaron Donald, and some really, really good ones outside of him as well. I know this is probably not what people who are draft nicks want to hear. I know this is probably not anything that anybody is dying to hear somebody talk about. I think there's so much that goes into this that is luck. I think there is if there was a way to do this that was the best way to do it, the way that would prevent you from drafting Greg Robinson would never get drafted. That Jamarcus Russell would never get drafted. Ryan Leaf would never get drafted. That Aaron Donald would have gone number one. You know what I mean? There's so much good fortune and good luck and bad luck and crossing your fingers. It's really hard to lift the hood on a guy's head and know what's going on in his brain. What happens when you pay him, when you put him in the league, when the dream is realized. You do the best you can. You grade him. You think about organizational depth charts. And then you just cross your fingers and hope. I know that's not super fun to think about, but I think it's a huge part of what goes into every single draft.
There's no doubt about it. And just kind of going back to what you said earlier, sometimes players fall in your lap, right? And sometimes that teams are going to learn to regret those non-picks. I mean, just look at Randy Moss when he was taken 21st overall in the first round pick, right? It's pretty much the perfect example, right?
Because he liked to smoke weed. It's an insane thing. You know what I mean?
Crazy.
It's just so much luck and so much stupid. And Warren Sapp was another one. Oh, okay. Well, he's this or like, you know what he is? He's a Hall of Famer. You know, maybe you take it. Nobody knows. And you got to get a little lucky.
Everyone thinks they're the smartest guy in the room in these situations. And we're going to pick this up, some more takeaways from Les Snead and Sean McVay's press conference, and some more first-round draft scenarios. We're going to get into that a little bit here on Locked On Rams.
Passion, drive, and patience. That's the winning formula for winning championships, and it's also what keeps your ride or die alive, right? eBay Motors has everything that you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up. Level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and a whole lot more. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has got you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you are always going to find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need at the prices that you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. So keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers.
And we are off and running here on Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Also, if you're new to the channel, be sure to subscribe to Locked On Rams YouTube channel. Also, subscribe over on the podcast. We also want to send a special shout out to those everyday listeners that watch and listen to every single episode of Locked On Rams. We cannot tell you how much we appreciate you. And you can join that Everyday Listeners Club too. Membership is 100% free. Just listen about your Los Angeles Rams and you won't miss a thing for your team. But Travis, here in a second, we're going to pick it up on the big takeaways from that press conference. I find this one pretty funny. So they admitted that they feel that touchdown scores are important. And Peter Schrager of Fox Sports, he said recently that he can just about guarantee if the Rams stay at number 19, they'll be picking an offensive player. And Sean McVay said, why the hell did Peter Schrager put that out there? Here's what I would say. That is not an accurate assumption. Now, are you saying that I get excited about an offensive player? Yeah, but I sure get excited about a defensive player too. And then Les Snead said that, hey, we talked to J.W. Jordan, our draft consultant. He said that touchdown scores are very important. You have to keep that in mind.
Look, Peter Schrager, A, is awesome. Big fan of Peter Schrager. I think he does a great job. And B, he knows Sean McVay really well. Like he knows Sean McVay really, really well. If Peter Schrager says something about McVay, says something about the Rams, you should listen. Okay, he's not just saying, I think I'm going to say this today. He's not. He's saying that because he has a really good indication that that's what's going to happen. I think they're going to pick offense too. Sean McVay, look, everybody in this league as a head coach is one or the other. You're an offensive guy or a defensive guy. I mean, you're one or the other. Nobody's a special teams guy as a head coach. No one is got their hands equally in both sides of the ball. You're an offensive guy or you're a defensive guy. Sean McVay's an offensive guy. That's okay. That doesn't make him a bad defensive coach. It doesn't mean that the Rams don't value defense. It means he's an offensive guy. We've seen them. You remember, what was it, 3, 4, 5 years ago? He broke football, that no one was going to be able to stop him offensively. That's what he does. And that if they went offense, they have needs offensively. We've talked about the offensive line. Tight end has been a position of need for them for a number of years. Yeah, if you're telling me they're going to pick at 19 and it's going to be an offensive player, it's where I'd put my money. That's for sure.
Yeah, and first I would want to point out, though, is Peter Schrager gave us a shout-out. He gave a shout-out to Locked On Rams on Good Morning Football last season. So, yeah, Peter Schrager is the man. He can join us anytime. But he also would say McVay said this wide receiver class is pretty deep, is incredibly deep, he would go on to say. So, yeah, I mean, that kind of links with what Peter Schrager said, and it is a very deep wide receiver class. We've talked about a lot of these guys, Romo Dunze, Malik Neighbors, but even you go guys like Brian Thomas, Ladd McConkey, Adonai Mitchell out of Texas. I mean, if this team wants a premier wide receiver and they're right in that mix, maybe they go that route, but they also just mentioned people who score touchdowns.
Yeah.
That, to me, the light that goes off is Brock Bowers out of Georgia. So I think that could be a name that you go after. You could possibly move up to 12, trade with the Denver Broncos, could be available at that spot. I don't think it's going to be available at 19, but you have to climb up a little bit to get Brock Bowers, and you got a really dynamic, I think one of the top 5 most intriguing prospects in this draft.
Let's just play this out. Let's say that it's Thursday night, the draft is going, and all of a sudden, on the clock with the Los Angeles Rams, or Roger Goodell walks up there and said the Los Angeles Rams and the Denver Broncos have traded picks. The Los Angeles Rams are on the clock at 9 or 10 or wherever they are. Tell me you're not thrilled if the name that comes out of Roger Goodell's mouth is Brock Bowers. The Los Angeles Rams select, yeah, let's go. I mean, that would be an amazing turn of events. It would be somebody that scores touchdowns. It would be an offensive player. I know that we've talked a lot about the wide receivers and the running backs and the offensive line, but Sean McVay has often talked about how the tight end position in this offense can be the thing that kind of unlocks everything else and be the thing that they really haven't had. We've seen them with both decent running backs and high-level guys. It looks really good. We've seen it with 2 different quarterbacks. Both of them have looked really good. Both of them resulted in Super Bowl appearances. We've seen them with really good wide receivers. We've seen them with an offensive line that's looked great, an offensive line that hasn't looked great. What we haven't seen is a playmaking tight end. What we have not seen is somebody that is a threat every time they break the huddle, not just to maybe have the ball thrown their way, but to make a big play, to get into the end zone, to be the guy that you go to on third down over and over again. I would love to meet the Rams fan that would be thrilled if Brock Bowers' name isn't the guy that's called when the Rams make that pick. They're not getting him at 19. They're going to have to make a move up if they're going to do it. But, I mean, if you could sign up for that right now, tell me who wouldn't do it.
Absolutely. We were talking about Brock Bowers months ago, right? And I think what makes him so intriguing is he's someone that can wreck a defensive game plan because he's so unique, right? He's almost like a hybrid wide receiver, tight end, big-time playmaker. And what makes him so intriguing to me is there might not be another tight end like Brock Bowers for another decade. Maybe. Right? When you look at his unique skill set, his speed, his ability to catch passes, and really can move like a wide receiver, but has that physicality like a tight end. And I think that he would take this offense to a whole nother level. But at the end of the day, I think it's going to be offense. I think it's going to be offensive tackle, though. I mean, what we've seen with this Rams team is that when you win a Super Bowl, you have an elite left tackle, Orlando Pace, Andrew Whitworth. This team hasn't been the same since Big Whit retired. I think the scenario I'm looking at, you either trade up and you get ahead of the Tennessee Titans and you select Joe Alt like we're talking about, or you can move to that number 12 spot somewhere in that range and get Olu Fashanu out of Penn State, someone who some people believe could be a better pass protecting left tackle than Joe Alt.
That's one of those picks that isn't super exciting in the sense of, we're going to see him in the end zone. This is the next Travis Kelce or Rob Gronkowski or whatever. Or, this is the guy that's running a 4-3, like Neighbors or anything like that. But what it is, you got the second most important position on offense locked down for the next decade. That's a big deal. It's not super fun because it's not a fantasy pick. It's not something that, you're giving your buddies all sorts of grief about because you got this guy and they didn't get him. But what it is incredibly important, And if you were able to land one of those guys that you mentioned, D-Mac, whether it's Olu Fashanu, whoever, that's one of those. Yeah, okay, maybe you're not running out to buy a jersey the next day, but you got the guy in the most important position on the field that's not called quarterback. It's a big deal. It's a big deal.
Are you if we get Joe Alt, I'm buying a Joe Alt jersey, and I'm going to get custom jerseys for my friend, one that says control and one that says delete, and we'll control Alt. Okay. I'll show myself out for that one. But coming up next, we got some more draft scenarios, some more takeaways from Les Snead and Sean McVay's draft press conference. The draft is this week, ladies and gentlemen. Get excited, Ramley.
All right, you heard D-Mac talk about how much he likes Monopoly Go because he's a competitive guy. You just heard he's going to force his buddies to wear jerseys. Well, I got a competitive side too. We all do. And the competitive side comes out on Monopoly Go, right? You've probably heard of it. You've probably seen it. You've probably had it pop up on your phone because it's been downloaded over 150 million times. It's a great twist on Monopoly where you play on not one, but over 100 of Monopoly boards in crazy locations. You build up amazing cities that bring you what? They bring you big money. The best part is you get to mess around with your friends a little bit, right? Who doesn't like that? You can charge them rent on those iconic properties, just like classic Monopoly, but you can heist their vaults for riches for you, for yourself, for me. And the leaderboards show you who the biggest Monopoly tycoon is. But it's not just the competitive side that loves it. You can also team up. You can team up with your friends and people all around the world in time tournaments to see who earns the huge rewards. So get in the game, join your friends. Download Monopoly Go right now for free on the App Store or Google Play.
And welcome back to Locked On Rams. Thank you for making Locked On Rams your first listen every single weekday. Free and available wherever you get your podcast. Locked On Rams, part of Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Okay, so Travis, at one point during that press conference, it kind of fell off the rails just a little bit because all of a sudden, Les Snead, he brought up a Reddit user. I mean, no one asked him. He brought him up and the name.
Which Reddit user would that be?
Okay, so what happened was, he said, "Hey, Eric, have you met our good pal Dangling #Fury? I can spell it out for you. He's a Reddit pal of ours who the other day on Reddit broke that we were going to trade up into the top 10. He said he had immediate sources in the building, so he's going to close out the program. We really like Dangling." And then McVay said, "I really like to know who those sources are." And then Snead said, "Here's the thing, though. He said we're going to take an offensive lineman." I'm like, man, he doesn't know Coach McVay. So who the heck is Dangling _Fury? Okay, is that Sean McVay's burner? Is that Les Snead's burner? Is that Travis Rogers' burner?
Whoever it is, he clearly has Les Snead's attention, I guess, if he's just bringing him up out of the blue. Look, I don't spend a lot of time on Reddit, and by a lot, I mean zero. I literally have not used Reddit, I think more than maybe once or twice in my entire life. Doesn't mean the guy's wrong. Doesn't mean he's right. I think if the Rams moved to look, we just talked about it. If Dangling Fury thinks that they're going to move into the top 10 to get an offensive line, I've heard worse plans. We've seen crazier conspiracy theories and predictions come out of crazier places than this. And that's not they're moving into the top 10 to take a kicker. You know what I mean? That's not that they're going to move up to number 1 to take Caleb Williams. That's not that the Rams want to move into the top 10 to get a left tackle. That's not out of left field. It's I think it's more interesting because of the who that dropped it and the name necessarily. But yeah, look, like I said, there are a couple of things that if it did happen, whether it's Bowers, whether it's Alt, whether these guys that are almost certainly going to go in the top 10, if you move into that spot, it's incredibly exciting. And it's the only way you're going to get those guys. And somebody somewhere is going to make a prediction that's going to come true. Hopefully it's Dangling Fury.
Yeah, we got to get him on this show, and we'll have like the FBI, where it's like we just use the robotic voice.
The blue dot.
With the blue dot, yeah. I think the Rams, Joe Alt, it's all robotic. I think that'd be pretty awesome. But yeah, I mean, look, #sources, #trust me, bro. You know what I mean?
Right.
I mean, but yeah, I mean, look, at the end of the day, you just never know with this franchise. At the end of the day, they could shock the world. We're going to be talking more about some scenarios in our episode leading up to it, and nothing would surprise me. I think the sensible thing, you try to solidify that offensive line, you get that left tackle, but I'm game for the offensive side of the ball, though. I will say that.
Yeah, me too. I guess the thing that I'm not, look, in Les Snead and Sean McVay, I trust. They've done a really good job with this, and I'm willing to ride with those guys for a while, considering all the success that they've been able to put together. But hey, we got it 19. Let's give it to someone else. Move back, collect more picks. That's not super fun. It may be kind of smart, not super fun. I hope they move up. I hope they take a pick. The window feels open. The window feels, the window for the longest time was Aaron Donald, and now the window feels like it's more Matthew Stafford / Sean McVay, and those guys are still in the the very sweet spot of their NFL careers. McVay in particular, maybe Stafford a little bit more towards the end, but let's load up on that side and see what happens.
And that's the name that always is circulating in my mind when it comes to this draft. Matthew Stafford. Yep. Whatever you need to do to optimize him and extend this window, that's what you need to do. But that's going to be this episode of Locked On Rams. My name is Doug McCain. You can follow me on X and Instagram at DMAC_LA. And you can follow the People's Champ, Mr. Travis Rogers, at Travis Rogers. And until next time, whose house? It's Locked On Rams house.